Meet Mr. Abalone face to face. It is his foot that makes such fine abalone steak. This commercially important snail is abundant only along the California coast.
So abalone are these giant marine snails.
White abalone, they're a little bit of a smaller abalone. They have these beautiful creamy tentacles.
The white abalone, which was actually the first marine invertebrate listed on the Endangered Species Act, happened in 2001.
But it was a much softer, much tender, and a delicate taste. Much better. And the white was one of those. By far the best tasting abalone of them all.
Oh, some folks boast of quail on toast because they think it's Tony. But I'm content to owe my rent and live on abalone.
The diver would go and collect a bunch of abalone and send it up in a basket to the top of the boat, and they would collect tremendous numbers of abalone in that way, export them back to Japan and China. My name is Vileisis. I'm an independent scholar, environmental historian. My book is Abalone, The Remarkable History and Uncertain Future of California's Iconic Shellfish. There's different phases of the history of California's abalone fishery. 1913 was a big year in California abalone history because the same racial prejudice that the earlier generation of Chinese divers faced was also faced by the Japanese divers. The way that the xenophobic legislature started to see things was just that we should just shut down the whole export fishery. Turned out the only place then that you could eat California abalone was in California. And it created this opening for a whole new market to be developed. As the domestic market expanded, it continued to grow as well. And so then there was another fishery that just grew to supply the fresh abalone fillet market. And abalone steaks became popular. Abalone sandwiches and abalone burgers that were eaten up and down the coast at this time. What people on shore saw of this fishery at the time were massive piles of shells that started to accumulate in some of the seaside Central California town. Big piles of shells. After the other red abalone had been fished out, the fishery turned to white abalone in the Channel Islands, in particular in Southern California. Landings of white abalone peaked in about 1972 at 144,000 pounds, and then continued at about 44,000 pounds per year until 1976. And then after that, there were lower numbers, and in 1978, the California Department of Fish and Game just removed any listing of abalones. It was as if they just dropped right off the charts.
Abalone, the delicacy of the sea. Next stop, the frying pan.
First I started diving abalone in 70. Worked abalone from 70 to 76, 78, phased into sea urchin. My name is Peter Halmay. I'm a sea urchin diver from San Diego. What I'd like to talk to you about today, though, is the abalone fishery in the 70s when I first got into it. We were diving blacks in shallow water, greens a little deeper, and then pinks and sorensens or whites out deeper. We depleted all the stuff between 20 feet and 80 feet. So then the guys decided either have to go shallow or go deep. They found white abalone outside of the kelp beds in sandy areas with large boulders. And the large boulders would be covered with sorensens. They'd be able to get 5 dozen, 10 dozen, 8 dozen off one rock. But what they saw is there weren't any small ones there. There weren't any small ones. When they finished with the rock, they'd gotten all of them.
We just fished everything that was there, thinking that there's being a refugia of animals even deeper and deeper. And unfortunately, that wasn't really true. And so within the span of 10 years, once we could get to the depth of white abalone, we fished over 99% of the entire species. I'm Alyssa Frederick. I'm the director of the White Abalone Captive Breeding Program at the Bodega Marine Lab. White abalone became the first marine invertebrate added to the Endangered Species Act because there was virtually nothing left, and what was left wasn't close enough together to reproduce. So white abalone have to be really close to a member of the opposite sex so that when they release eggs or sperm, those things meet in the water column. That has to happen really close together. Otherwise, it becomes way too dilute. We like to say that they're really bad at long-distance relationships. The decision was made that the best way to save this species was to bring some of those wild adults in to captivity, spawn them, and release the babies. Because the main thing working against them was that there weren't any left. We've gone from producing like a handful of 1-year-olds every year to tens of thousands of 1-year-olds every year, which is really, really exciting. Our restoration goal is to be basically producing another order of magnitude higher than that. And so that's what we're working on now. Like our main research component is figuring out how to do what we do better.
The story of abalone in California are very interwoven into the fabric, I would say, of California, past, present, and hopefully into the future with our species recovery efforts. I'm Rilee Sanders. I work for Power Marine Research Group, and I'm a marine biologist. Our main focus is on abalone restoration and research, particularly white abalone. White abalone occurred just within the Southern California Bight, so that is Point Conception in the north, around Santa Barbara, and then down into Mexico. Back in 2001 under the ESA, and in the NOAA recovery plan, the estimated remnant population of white abalone was between 1,600 and 2,500. Our ultimate goal is to create a self-sustaining population where there are enough abalone with densities great enough to reproduce and sustain the population moving forward. I've been involved in transporting captively reared white abalone from their home in the lab to their final home in the ocean. We've placed over 16,000 white abalone out onto the reef, which is terribly exciting. Thus far, we've seen about 30% mortality. So even if you take 1% of 16,160 animals, you've now increased the remnant population by 10%, which is pretty exciting.
We did this. Like, this was the threat for white abalone is overfishing. And we 100% are responsible for what could have been their complete demise. And we also are completely responsible for the restoration of this species going so well. And now we've outplanted over 16,000 animals that have been grown in this program. I mean, that's more animals than existed before we started outplanting in the wild. The worst case scenario is that we don't have funding for the work and the work has to stop. And I know that this network of people is going to continue to restore the ocean in whatever way is possible. And so I think that it's a super hopeful team. I think the people give me a lot of hope, but also the animals themselves.
Some live on hope and some on dope and some on alimony. But my tomcat, he lives on fat and tender abalone. Some drink rain and some champagne or brandy by the pony. But I will try a little rye with a dash of abalone.